not with the cable of the heatsink fan. So that's the Wraith Stealth fan. Well, I do have the parts for another PC, but it's old, but it'll do it. So let's make another build guide. So this build guide shows everyone that even at any budget, even just from free parts that you've been given from friends and family or whoever you know, you can pretty much build a PC out of them, and it could be really capable. But I'm going to be doing some things on the video as well. I'm going to have a little price tag on the side of how much everything costed and everything being, like, all the money being added up. So I don't really know how much this is, how much it's going to cost, because these are mostly parts around my thing, but I know there's a couple of parts that I bought recently and I know the prices of them, so those will get included. All the prices of the parts I don't know, I'm going to put a star next to them and the used pricing, because these parts are all used. So yeah, enough of that. I hope you enjoy the video, and if it actually helps you build a PC, well, cool, that's actually great. But other than that, let's get started with the build guide, and I'll see you guys, and hopefully you have a working PC by the end of this. Okay, so these are the parts that we're going to be using, and this is all a voiceover, so here we go. This is the Gigabyte MH61M-S2V-B3, and this is what's going to be holding our CPU and RAM. It's an old board, but it works. Next is our CPU. This is a Core i5-2500. It has 4 cores and 4 threads, which is more than enough for this PC, and it's still working to this day. We have 8 gigs of DDR3, 1600 MHz, even though the board can't run it. This is Kingston HyperX Blue and Genesis. This is the stock Intel cooler that I'm going to be using. Nothing special, it just works. These are my storage devices, so I've got a Drivo 128, a SanDisk 240, and a 1TB hard drive for all my stuff. This is my power supply that I'll be using, and it's a 7-year-old unit, which means it still works because it was a hand-me-down from my dad, like the case that I used last year. And it's made by Tesla. Not that Tesla we know, this brand of Tesla. This is our GPU, and it's a bit overkill, but I do play games. So this is a GTX 1050 Ti, made by Gigabyte. It runs on 6-pin, and it is a 8X GPU, so you could actually run this on an 8X slot if you wished. Now, the case that we're going to be using is quite an interesting one, because this is a Packard Bell iStar 2369, nice, and it's an old case, but this is what we're going to put everything in, because I gutted the old PC out, because it never really worked properly. So, yeah, this is the case we're using. First, let's start putting the CPU into the socket. So, there is going to be a little triangle that you need to see in one of the corners, or a little dot. It depends on what generation of CPU or what chip you use. Simply, you need to line up that socket to the chip, and it should just plop in, as simple as that. You shouldn't need to mess around. It should just plop in, put your lever down, or an Intel, put your clamp down, and then that's literally it. To install your memory, make sure you line the notch up in the RAM slot, put the stick inside the plastic piece, and then just push down. It's literally as simple as that. If you put it in the wrong way, it will not go in, or you may break the memory slot. Installing the heatsink for a stock Intel cooler is easy said than done, but some coolers are different, so you may need to look at your manuals. First of all, line your cooler up with the holes, and then on an Intel cooler, make sure the arrows are pointing outwards and not inwards, and then just push down. It's really easy. I'll show the finished result now. Once you've clipped in your CPU cooler, now's a good time to do some cable management, and I accidentally did an oopsie on this because the clip that holds the CPU cooler cable in place, I accidentally broke that because of how brittle it is, so you got to be careful. As you can see, there you go, that's the moment where I broke it, and yeah, just be careful about clips and how old stuff can be. The next part of this build is your case preparation, so make sure your side panel is open and you are able to access everything. Now, if you are using micro ATX, you are only going to have 4 slots being used. If you're using ATX, then you're going to have 6 slots, and if you're using eATX, you may have 8 or 12 slots to use. Now, just pull all your cables out of the way from the front I/O, which you'll be needing later to plug into your motherboard, which I'll be showing you in a minute. And let's get started with putting the first part in, which is your I/O shield. And what you need to do is line up the bottom, make sure that the auxiliary ports at the bottom stay at the bottom, and just push in on each corner, and then after that push on the top and then on the sides to make sure that all the little clips are in place and the I/O shield stays in. Next, we are going to be installing the power supply. So on a top mounted power supply case or a bottom mounted power supply case, the fan always points down. If you point the fan up, you most likely will be suffocating the power supply from hot air, or it will not be able to breathe properly. Now, the screws you're going to be needing are the hex looking ones with the thick threads, and those just go straight into the power supply. And you screw it in, and then literally that is done. Now, once you've screwed in your power supply, just grab all your cables and then just pretty much just pull them out of the case so they're out of the way. If your case has a hidden power supply tray, you can hide all your cables in there for the time being until you need them. But let's get the motherboard installed now. Now, all you have to do is line the back ports up with the I/O shield, and then just put it into place and line up all the holes with the standoffs on the board, well, on the case. And if you do not have any standoffs on the case, well, you need them, or else your board will actually short out and break. So if you have a case where it has no cable management, the best time to do that is the best time to do that now, where you can route all your cables underneath the board to make it look nice and clean. Once your motherboard is aligned, you can start putting in your screws and start screwing. Like I said before, make sure you've got standoffs, or else you are going to short your board out. Once the motherboard has been fully screwed into place and it's not coming out, you can now start your cable management. And yes, while everyone says this is the worst part of cable management, it's going to have to get done, and it can be quite time consuming. So if you've got the patience and you want to spend as long as you want on the cabling, do as you please. Go ahead, make it look kind of nice in there. But if you don't have time for any cable management, then now's the time to not bother with that. You can just leave your wires as is, but the chance of them getting stuck in your fans will be quite high. But if you have no other choice but to do cable management, if your power supply is hidden behind a power supply cover, then yeah, you've no other choice but to do your cable management like that. So yeah, just make sure you've got a drink nearby, like a cup of tea or something, because you'll be doing this for a while. Something that I missed out in this part, if you want to use your ports at the front, then please go to the manual for your motherboard. It'll show you your diagram for your front I/O, like your front USBs, your front audio jack, and most importantly, you will need this, your front connectors for your lights and your power button. And they are quite difficult, but because this case had everything all pre-done and pre-wired for me, all I had to do was just plug it in, and it was as simple as that. That's something that I forgot to mention. Once your cable management is all done, well, kind of, like you see on my thing, it's the best I could get it. But the next thing you'll be doing now is actually getting your drives prepared. So you want to get your drives that you'll be using, and just figure out which way the ports go on, because they go on one way and one way only. So after you figure out what's what, then will be a good time to actually screw your drives in. Or if you've got an SSD and you do not have any SSD mounts, then you can just shove them somewhere, like right here, pretty much. If you do not know how to screw in your hard drive, it's really simple. Make sure you put it in the right way, where the ports are facing into the case and towards the motherboard, and there will be 2 or 4 screws that you need to put in. Usually there'll be 2 on each side, but since this case can be opened on one side, you will only be putting 2 screws in to hold the hard drive in. It uses the same screws as either the power supply, or it uses the same screws as the motherboard that you've used. I know there seems to be a lot of jumps in this video, but it's all related to trying to get the cables in places that I want them to go. It can be really hard sometimes, so you've just got to try and take your time and deal with the cables. But once you get all your cables in the way, well, in the places that you want to go for the drives, just plug them in. Make sure the metal clip faces up from the drive, and it should just click into place, or it should just friction mount into place. And after you plugged in your SATA cables, you should also plug in your SATA power, which will be like a bigger version of the SATA data cables that you've just plugged in. Now it's time for the final piece of the puzzle, and you'll be doing all of your little bit of gaming on this little thing called the graphics processing unit, or the GPU. Now if you want to put your GPU in, you got to put it in the PCIe lane on the fastest port you have, which will be the top port and the longest port. If you have more than one of these ports, it's got to stay on the top at all times. So you pretty much just got to line it up and then push down till you hear a click. If your case has screw holes, screw it in. If it's got clamp hole, got clamps, clamp it in. Or if it's got a bracket, just screw it in with the bracket. But other than that, plug your power in, and bam, your PC should be ready to boot. Just now, all you got to do now is, here you go, here's me looking for my cables. That's me plugging in the plugging in the PSU, switching it on, and then bam, springs into life. First try, and I even plugged in the display straight after and restarted the machine, and it also posted as well. So absolutely nothing wrong with the PC, and I've been playing some games and doing some benchmarks on it that I'll be showing to you right now. So here we go. Here are the benchmarks. Heads up, the following benchmark videos that you're about to see will not have audio. There is only one video that has audio, and ironically it's Beat Saber. Beat Saber is one of the videos as the benchmark tool, as being used for benchmarking. So yeah, here are the videos of the benchmarks.
pills that I've been taking, but I feel overclocked, overworked, over and over, too hot. I got to stop, turn the plan on, turn the fan on, melting from the inside, trying to stand on fire, down wired, it's got a virus. Thought I was the new me, back to the old trip. Heart goes boom, trapped in a padded room, a womb for powerless flowers who can't bloom. Don't assume from afar that you can diagnose a ghost just from looking at the scars. Scars in your eyes, I can tell, but you're living in denial. Try out living in hell. You'll be sick of confusion. Start the infusion. Robotic is better than human. I want to be a machine, and I want to be shiny, chrome, and clean.
Okay, so here we are. This is the final result of the PC, and it's been alright. The temperatures are fine. I mean, sure, 70 degrees is a little hot, but that's because it's a stock Intel cooler. But other than that, it is playable. Games are stable to play. Sure, VR is not great on it, but I was able to play games like VR Chat in desktop mode and BeamNG with 0 issues. Medium and high wow, that's impressive for a 11-year-old hardware with a 1050 Ti. So yeah, that's pretty much it for today's video. This basically just shows you how capable machines are even years later. People underestimate these things, but literally keep them around. Give one to, like, if you have a bunch of PCs laying around, give one to your family members who needs a machine. Literally, if you don't have any use for it, maybe give it to a kid or something. Put a gaming card in it. But other than that, that's literally it. Thanks for watching the video, and hopefully at the end of the day, you've got yourself a working machine. So, I'll see you guys soon.